Another theme that's going to come up throughout this course is creativity. And several of you participated in the creative content creation challenges, I think what I called it, a few weeks back. And in teaching that course and getting feedback from a lot of people that went through it, I've learned a lot about creativity and what creativity actually requires. And what we have to understand is that creativity is a different channel than intellect. Creativity is more of a process and language of the heart, and strategy, marketing, tactics, all those things are a process and language of our intellect and our head. The creativity channel is required in this business. None of you are selling, headphones that I'm aware of. None of you are selling commodities where you buy cheap and sell higher. None of you are doing that I'm aware of. If you're not selling a physical product like that you just purchase and sell, then you're creating something from yourself. You're creating something from your story. You're creating trust. You're creating transformations. You're creating things. And you're creating content, which is the primary way to market, is to create language and videos and interactions. So the creative channel does not work the same as the intellectual channel, but most people are demanding that it does. Most people's intellect are demanding that they know the rules to creativity. And it's literally like two different languages. The intellect does not have the capacity to understand what creativity needs and how to nurture it, and or the value of it even. But what most people are demanding are the right ways to do it, or they're demanding some kind of a process that worked for somebody else. You cannot open up and then improve your creativity intellectually. You cannot do it. Yet just about everybody has those demands of themselves. I'm only going to write if I know how I can actually write really good stuff. For those of you that haven't read the book War of Art, it's a play on words of the famous book, The Art of War. It's a powerful book, and it's all about creativity. And one of the things that it talks about, and I've learned, is that creativity requires consistency. So what happens a lot of times in this space of marketing is that you might see somebody that is writing fantastic captions on Instagram or amazing Facebook posts, and you see their work, you see their creativity, and then you demand that you do that too. Number one, it's just ridiculous to demand that your creativity looks like anybody else's creativity, but you don't know how long it took them to get there. You might not know how long it took them to do that one specific post. You might not realize that there was so much put in behind what you experienced, and you're actually ahead of the game from what was required behind the scenes. But if you take where you are and compare it to the finished product and then demand that of yourself, you're going to be stuck. You're going to be absolutely stuck. I wrote a Facebook post yesterday that ended up getting a lot of engagement and probably the most shares that I've ever gotten from a Facebook post, at least a written one. A lot of people shared my crying video from from about a month ago. But this one just engaged people in a way that I hadn't seen before. It was deep. It was on the masculine wound. I was bawling. I was in the coffee shop crying as I was writing it. And what I meant to write didn't become what ended up being shared. So I sat down intending to write one thing, and then it just blew up. It exploded. I would not have been able to sit down and intellectually understand what that post was going to look like 2.5 hours later. And that's probably about the amount of time that it took me to write that thing. So what I'm sharing with you is there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes that people don't know, but when creativity is involved, most people grossly misunderstand the process. Grossly misunderstand. And for me personally, I've probably written 5,000 things, whether it's emails or Facebook posts or created things on the fly, you know, that never even got published. I mean, this mind and this body has created at least 5,000 things. Actually, if you want to include videos and all the things that I've done, it's probably closer to 10. And there's no way that I could have written that post without the experiences that I had last year, without all the challenges that I had the years before, without post number 1, without creativity output number 1, I couldn't have had number 10,000. Yet most people are expecting their number 1 to be number 10,000. And it's impossible in all ways. But if you understand what creativity actually is, what's the energy of creativity, then this is not just an intellectual thing of, oh yeah, I got to take it easy on myself and not compare myself to others and not compare my dress rehearsal to their opening night. Those are all cute. Those are all nice little affirmative things that we say to ourselves, but that usually actually doesn't cause anybody to change their behavior. It just causes their intellect to go, yeah, I understand this. And then they still don't do anything. So one of the ways to make shifts that will release us from the blocks that we've been having is to understand the process, because we cannot ever manage something we don't understand. We can't ever control something we don't understand. And so if we don't understand the animal called creativity, then we're going to treat it like a different animal. We're going to feed it a different diet and put it in a different environment, and it won't grow because it doesn't eat that diet and it doesn't belong in that environment. So each and every one of us has a creative channel inside that is so brilliant, and we have to learn how to bring it out. If your intellect demands that next level brilliance comes out in the first try or the 5th try or the first year or whatever the demands are, you're robbing your own creativity from ever coming out. And I don't want any of you to live this life never having been truly introduced to your own brilliance. If you follow all of the ways to market, you'll never be introduced to your own brilliance. From my perspective in experience in all of this world. So that's why we're going inside out. And once you have this internal process, not just internally in yourself, but internally in terms of the guts of the business, then when it comes time to be visible, it won't be as scary, because the confidence and the certainty comes from this internal work. So it won't be as scary, and it will go faster. And then you get to choose. You get to choose if you want to continue following the microwave approaches that never have worked. I was thinking this morning, or just like a half hour before this call, I have never once heard anybody say in this industry that the turnkey system, the one-size-fits-all thing that they purchased, worked for them. Not once have I heard a single person say it worked. Yet those things fly off the shelf. I guarantee you, in the time it took me to say that sentence, 1,000 people just bought a one-size-fits-all, don't worry, you don't have to think, we've done all the work for you system. And not once have I ever heard a single human say it worked. Not once. But that's what they're all searching for. And that's what is being sold. So if you really want to play a different game, you can't follow the same recipe that everybody else is failing with. And you've probably failed with too. Two more things I want to talk about. One of the components of building a successful business is to have, I never put those two words together until I wrote these slides, strategic resiliency. What is strategic resiliency? That's when you try something strategically. You try to do something on Facebook, you try to do a live event, you try to get somebody on the phone, and it doesn't work. And then your resiliency allows you to adjust. Resiliency can only happen if you experience failure. So if we can agree that resiliency is an important part of success, then resiliency requires failure to be built. In order for resiliency to be built, it requires failure. Now, again, we've got all kinds of intellectual, very cute, very seductive sayings, like every no gets you closer to a yes, and the people that succeed the most are the ones that have failed the most. Intellectually, we understand all of that, and it doesn't solve the problem because we're afraid of the failure. But you cannot build, if we can all agree that resiliency is a trait that is required to be successful in business, and I 100% agree with that. Like right now, we're dealing with changes in the market that require resiliency for people to succeed. People that are still operating the way the market was 3 years ago, 5 years ago, they're obsolete. If you can't be resilient, then you can't respond to the changes in environment. You can't respond to the changes in society. You can't respond to the changes of certain platforms, like when Facebook changes their algorithm and all of a sudden nobody sees your posts anymore. If you don't have resiliency, you can't respond to any of that stuff. So if we agree that resiliency is a required part of success, then we have to create the recipe that builds resiliency, and the recipe is failure. There's no such thing as resiliency without failure. But there's two kinds of resiliency. There's strategic resiliency, which is the ability to respond to failure in strategy. And then there's embodied resiliency, which is the body to respond to failure. They're both required, but they're both different. You can have strategic resiliency, but you don't have the body, then it doesn't matter. You can know what you should do after that last thing failed, but if you won't let yourself do it, then it doesn't matter that you know what you should do. It's probably easier to not know. It's probably easier to be ignorant than to know what to do and still not have the body to do it. Or you can have the body to do it, but if you don't have the strategic resiliency and you don't know what changes to make, then that's also useless because you're not making any pivots that's changing any of the results. So these two are different. They require each other, and they're necessary components of success. So everything that I teach, every exercise that I give, all of my answers, everything that I bring to this program in all ways is committed to these things. And that's why I said a little while ago, it's what you need, not what you want. Nobody is online right now saying, how do I develop embodied resiliency? And what I can tell you is that is the single reason almost everybody fails. That's the single reason. We'll probably live all of our natural born lives without a single person ever typing that into Google. So this dichotomy of what we want versus what we need to be successful is really important for us to discern. Kathy says, how do I create the body for embodied resiliency? Fail more. Fail often. Do YouTube videos that suck. Try to get people to tell you you're a slimy snake oil salesman. Do the visibility work that creates the discomfort that confirms you've done the work or tells you what work needs to be done. And that's going to be an ongoing story. Yeah, I like the reframe that Ariel just gave. It's a victorious story of failure, and I've had so much in my life. Beautiful. So with that being, all of that being said, my thoughts and sort of a recapturing of some of this stuff, because I know we talked about some of this stuff in the live event, but you were also in the live event and now, or listening to the live event, and now we're getting into implementation. So some of this stuff needs to be represenced, and some of it is 3 hours old. So I didn't even know, I never had these thoughts in the live event because I just had them this afternoon. Yeah. Fail more. Thank you, Diane. That does sound like a good TEDx talk. Maybe that's the way we're going to start getting people to Google it, is embodied resiliency. What does that mean? You guys know how big I am on embodiment now and neurotransformation. So it is just everything, you know, it's the whole cake, and all the other stuff is just icing. And the success that we'll get with the icing is short-lived and shallow. Fail more, fail often, fail fast. I love that. And I had another phrase that was similar to that. Do it scared, do it unprepared, and then do it again. I probably should have, if I would have thought about that, I would have written those in the slides. Because a lot of people won't do things because they're scared, and they don't understand that that's actually the recipe, is to be scared and then do it. Do it while you're scared. Do it when you're unprepared. You cannot prepare for things and then do it and get anywhere in your life, really. And how do you prepare for things without actually doing it and knowing what else you need to prepare for, right? So this little mantra is something I thought about a few years ago, and it's so true. Are you scared to do it? Awesome. That's part of the recipe. No, I can't do it yet, though. I'm unprepared. Cool. That's ingredient number 2. So there are 3 ingredients to this recipe at a very basic level. You must be scared, you must be unprepared, and then you must do it again. Great. So if you ever find yourself going, I don't think I'm prepared, awesome. That's ingredient number 2. Or I'm really scared. Great. That's ingredient number 1. And then ingredient number 3 is consistency, because you can't do something again without doing it a first time. And that's it. And guys, if all you did was took those 3 components and became ignorance on fire, and you just kept doing stuff and doing stuff and doing stuff and learning and adjusting and doing it and not taking it personal, you would succeed. It doesn't actually require a lot of strategic understanding in the future to succeed. It requires scared, unprepared action and then adjusting to the feedback. That's really the basic element here. Yeah, this could be a new Dr. Seuss poem. Dr. Seuss for coaching poem. Yes. All right. So let me get to your questions here. Oh, I guess I have another thought. This whole idea of creativity and intellect. Stop trying to predict the future before you take action. Learn from the past and adjust. And this has a dual meaning here. Learn from the past is learn from your past and the embodiment, but learn from the past in a business sense means you got to get data. At the live event, I told you guys about Teresa, who said that she had done dozens, I think 20 or 40 Facebook Lives. And then I said, which ones have the most views? And she said, the ones that have the most views are the ones that are a little bit more controversial in their title. Awesome. So now with that data, we can say, then do more controversial Facebook Lives. It's very simple because we're dealing with data. But what the rest of the 99 out of 100 people are doing is trying to predict what title and what kind of Facebook Live content they're going to do in order to get the results that they want. While they're trying to predict the future, Teresa has 40 in the bank and now has data to then start to filter and discern and get more laser focus, because within those ones that perform better, now we're going to do all of those and then see which one of that subset produces better, whatever she's looking for, and then make small tweaks and learn and tweak and learn and tweak and learn. So that's the process that will, the only process really that will move the needle in your business. Action and adjust. Yep, I like that. Act, adjust. It's really just that simple. And Christine says, finally, a recipe that works for everyone. Yes, finally. That's the only one-size-fits-all recipe out there, is the one that inside of it has all of the space for us to do the internal work, right? Okay, so let's get to your questions. One question is, can you help me figure out the